Hello there and welcome to the candy wallpapered upstairs hallway of the dollhouse for another reading from The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and Just Elfers for April 5th, the day of consequence. That's right. And here at the top of the page is a visual representational image of the day of consequence. We have what appears to be, what could it be? Oh, it looks to be some various spinning tops atop some logs, I guess you could say. That's right. Now, does that speak to the day of consequence? Hey, who's to say? A lot of times these visual representational images, a little bit, I don't know, eccentric, if you like. There's no real reason for what they threw them in there. That said, sometimes we can kind of make a little justification, who's to say, but not altogether all too important. Not when it's April 5th and it's somebody's birthday. That's right. So what is important around these here parts, if it's April 5th and it's your birthday, wishing you a happy birthday. So happy birthday. But if this video finds you late, I don't know, days, weeks, months, whatever the case may happen to be, well, I hope you had a happy birthday. But for everybody else who's joining us randomly, I just want to say hello, welcome, and I hope you enjoy yourself. Now, before I dive in with the redirect, something I like to do around these here parts, and that is roll some dice. That's right. If you've been here before, you know what's going on. Just skip ahead in the chapters if you like. That's what they're there for. I'll be here rolling dice because I like to live up to the namesake, but I do so more importantly for synchronicity's sake. And here I rolled us, what is it? A 5 and a 3. 4 and 8. Hey, so we got a number 5 in there. There you go. Now, what is synchronicity, you're probably wondering? Well, as I hear tell, the universe or the higher powers that be will oftentimes put things in our path to help us realize our goals or manifest our aspirations. But a lot of times we're very narrow or singular of focus, so we might miss those things that are being put down in our path, if you like. So we kind of need something to help us recognize those things. That's right. Some kind of, I don't know, mutually agreed upon sign between us and the higher powers that be. What could that be? That's right. Your daily numbers. That's right. So how do you use this? Well, quite simply, you're going to look for the numbers, your 5, your 3, your 8, 35, 53, whatever the case may happen to be. But if you want to take it an extra step further, you can get out in the world with your own set of dice and let the universe take the wheel. How do you do that? Well, you just describe directional values in number sets, like your 1 through 3 be north, or you can even go evens, odds for left and right, whatever the case may be. And then you roll your dice for time limits with which to go in those directions. And then you just pick a place to start off from. Maybe a place you haven't been, your favorite place, town square, whatever the case may be. And you set off with your daily number in mind and then your directional values and the like. And then you just head on out. But as you head on out, stay eagle-eyed. See what you see. You never know. The day might start to take on a little bit of a theme, all right? Hey, let's take the visual representational image, for example. Spinning tops and logs, that have little ropes around them. Hey, that seems a little bit random, but you never know. Something like that might start to creep in, all right? You got to be eagle-eyed. And you might start to see that stuff on your journey, all right? Your first directional value time limit. Hey, maybe you come to a little park and there's kids playing with tops or whatever. All right, spinning jacks maybe, perhaps. I mean, that's an old-timey thing. You're not going to see it very often, so I would say that stands out. Otherwise, you might just pass it right on by. And you never know. You just get out there and see such things. You're going to see a kind of magic, all right? And who's to say, maybe somebody sees you rolling your dice for your next time value. They stop, they ask you what you're doing. Hey, just be upfront and honest. Oh, this crazy loon on the internet suggested this. It's my birthday. I want to get out here and shake things up a little bit, keep it interesting. And they might go, that's crazy. And you go, I know it's crazy, but hey, I just had to try something. They go, yeah, that too. But what's more crazy is it's my birthday too. You never know. It could be something as wild as that. And if it is, hey, it's just the universe putting more things down in your path to help show you that it's with you. All right. At least that's my discernment on the matter. So get out there, let the universe show you that it's with you on your path. Feel, taste, touch, smell a little bit of the magic. You understand why I brought it up. All right. Now that's in the bag. Let's get on with the reading. That's why you're here. Your month is April, your day is the 5th, your sign is 14 to 16 degrees Aries of the Aries II period specifically. Your quality and element is Cardinal fire. All right, April 5th, the day of consequence. Those born on April 5 have the ability to succeed in life and the tenacity to hang in there. Possessed of a star quality, they present a composed and self-confident image without appearing overly egotistical. In like manner, they themselves are often taken up with the appearance of things rather than examining them deeply. Most often, they pursue one profession and one set of principles, one stream of thought right through life. And April 5 people, they seek appreciation, as those with a star quality often do. But they survive without it. They persist in endeavors, whether others are paying heed or not. No matter what is going on around them, they can bring tremendous powers of concentration to bear on the matter at hand. It is hard to imagine calling people with this kind of star quality modest, but in fact, April 5 people are. They are most comfortable playing the part of an unassuming regular guy or girl. Of course, for those born on this day who are exceptionally gifted, this is consummate play acting. Yet April 5 people do not react well to being analyzed, probed, or found out. As far as they are concerned, the part they are playing is what they truly are, and they do not want anyone to dig any deeper. The most suitable professions for April 5 people are those in which they can continue for life's duration. And those born on this day tend to be long-lived with complete and satisfying careers. The same cannot always be said of their marriages, which can be tempestuous and for some April 5 people dotted with both their indiscretions and rather long affairs. Often they can see nothing wrong with their behavior, and emotionally those born on this day can be very difficult to reach. Sitting down and talking things out may be something they disdain. And those involved in relationships with April 5 people generally find that they are expected to be understanding at all times. And since April 5 people attract admirers like flies, a lot of this understanding may be required. And although these are the last people to wish to burden themselves with controversy, they may encounter antagonism from those threatened by their direct and forthright approach. They will not compromise their beliefs, even if it means being punished financially for it. Money is not paramount to them anyway. And more important is that they be successful in implementing their plans and that their ideals not be threatened. Great believers in defending honesty and integrity, they may nonetheless avoid disturbances in order to get on with the business of life. And often they will leave the question of whether there is to be a fight or not up to the opponent. When locked into an endeavor or an activity, April 5 people often don't know when to quit, unaware that others are getting bored or indifferent and may wish to move on to something else. In the same way, some born on this day continue their principal occupation too long, and it is thus essential that they periodically take stock of their lives and, if necessary, make needed changes, even if difficult or painful. Well, all right, pretty interesting day. All right, I saw a little bit of oxymoronic aspects in there, I would say, what with integrity and the like, but then sometimes people have dalliances with affairs and whatnot. Who's to say? That being said, very interesting day when we compare it to the more generalized Aries theme that's often been seen here in the past. But that said, I'd like to provide a little bit of a commentary on what we just read, maybe infuse such things like I just mentioned there, little details and the like, into what we just read, and go over the things we just read, see what I had to say about it. So let's dive into the notes here. April 5, the day of consequence. You're said to have the ability to succeed in life with a tenacity to hang in. Like several other Aries individuals, you're also said to possess a star quality. And you come off composed, self-confident, without being too egotistical. That's huge, I would say. Sometimes that's kind of baked in there in the bargain. Pursuing one subset of standards in a profession and keeping after those dynamics is also something that presents with a surprising regularity among Aries folks. And this dynamic of shared characteristics is actually a through line theme for the period, more so than any other I've encountered. You share a lot of qualities with your fellow Aries folks, which extends to your concern for your endeavors over seeking appreciation. And I would say one key difference, however, is that it's mentioned that you seek out appreciation despite not requiring it. Those who actually seek it out in this period thus far, they're very rare. And even rarer to almost non-existent, at least by the readings claim, are those who require it to function. And the reading, that said, rather, some aspects that set you apart from the greater whole of the Aries folks are keeping up with the appearance of things versus thinking deeply, not reacting well to being analyzed, also issues with marriages you may not see problems with. Something I only saw come up with marriage was back in March 25th, so quite a ways back there. What I find interesting is your purported ability to maintain an unassuming, modest air. I appreciate that. And considering you're said to be a star and attract admirers like flies, even more so. Some people let that stuff go to the head. Even if you're just play acting, so to speak, who's to say? While it's true many Aries are said to possess great friendship capacities, more often than not, they have no concern for as much. And maybe even why it works for them so well. But you may share the burden of attracting antagonists as well. Though for you, at least by going by the reading, it kind of sounded like it had something to do with those dalliances. So who's to say? Maybe not, but they kind of managed to make it sound like that. But it's a very common through line for Aries folks regardless. Even those who are minding their own business, they somehow attract antagonists, ostensibly because of the success they derive from what they're accomplishing. That said, the reasons tend to differ a little bit, but a blunt, straightforward approach, common reason also. Many other Aries folks also hold their beliefs in a high standing, seldom compromising. And though the mention of money to sway may be a first mention here in the book, not that I don't think that, what I have to say here, it wouldn't apply to them also, it just doesn't come up. So the subject of your perpetual pursuit, boring others, and the idea of going for too long and considering change, well, that also presents for other Aries folks. They get into the thing that they're passionate about, and they keep going with it. I would also say there's just a ton of similarities between y'all, but you do stand out for a lot of the reasons previously mentioned. But I would say your star power, that's one of the ones that stands out the most, all right? At least from what I recall from the days previous. That said, that's what I had to say about the breakdown. So let's move on to your numbers and your planets. Here we go. Let me get the book aligned for the camera and frame here. There we go. All right. Those born on the 5th of the month are ruled by the number 5 and the planet Mercury. This planet represents quickness of thought as well as change. And April 5 people would do well to heed its promptings. Mars, the ruler of Aries, gives abundant energy to Mercury on this day, energy which may carry April 5 people through life. And those ruled by the number 5 also like to take risks. All right. So one may find April 5 people who are quite content in their family or career situations, risking danger on the side. Gambling, reckless driving, or dangerous liaisons, as was mentioned. What those ruled by the number 5 and April 5 people surely have in common is that life's hard knocks generally bounce right off their resilient character, and they continue on unfazed. All right. Quite the personalized numbers and planets entry for you today, to be sure. Sometimes it's just a little bit of a boilerplate copy-paste job, but they didn't do that here for you. I thought they personalized it for sure. So let's get into some of the other stuff I have to say here, some of the details if you like. Number 5 in the speedy planet Mercury for quickness of thought and change and ironically change. Okay, much of the which the book again suggests lending consideration toward, because from what I got in the breakdown, they said you don't like it so much. So again, ironic considering Mercury likes that, or you're drawn to it. Elsewhere in the book, a vivacity and an impulse toward your endeavors is mentioned for Mercury folks, and attention to detail, as well as a love for games and puzzles, and the likes of which I say in no small part does come through in the breakdown a little bit, I would think, even if not directly mentioned. Little games of life, if you like. You got risk-taking, adventure, and accidents also arises from Mercury in the number 5. But considering Mars with its god of warlike fire and energy, and it's got that adventuresome ambition baked in there too, I'd say that there's a bolstering effect for chasing excitement there, which may explain the idea of gravitating toward a little bit overindulgence, if you like. Perhaps, who's to say? But you're also dedicated, hardworking, commitment. That takes energy, all right? Some folks don't have it, especially say like a Mercury or a moon day. They're a little bit more reserved, head in the clouds kind of thing. They don't have that earthy, strong energy going. Those such things would probably wouldn't come to mind in such cases there, because you got it in spades, if you like. You're not even concerned about it. It just keeps pushing you through. Any event, that's what I'd say about your numbers and planets. Hopefully added a little bit more detail to some of the dynamics going in there mixed in. They just kind of mentioned Mars real quick and said it helps give you that extra push. But Mars has some aggressive energy that comes in, and it either bolsters things or it just creates a huge, what you call conflict of interest. And some of the days, it really sets them back. Here, didn't sound like that for you so much. So, hey, more power to you. All right. So that's been your numbers and your planets. Let's move on to your tarot card. That's right. One of the more eclectic of the New Age metaphysical ideologies, stirs up instances of people claiming it's blasphemous and the like. Hey, you know what? It's just in the book. It's here for fun and for free. Let's see what it has to say, and then we can leave it there. A lot of times it strikes a interesting similarity to what's in the breakdown. Other times, not so much. So let's just see if it informs it all, and then, hey, leave it in the book. So let's get to it here. The 5th card of the major arcana is the Hierophant, an interpreter of sacred mysteries who is symbolic of human understanding as well as faith. His knowledge is esoteric, and he has authority over things unseen. And favorable traits conferred by this card are self-assuredness, absence of doubt, and proper introspection. Unfavorable traits are moralizing, bombast, as well as dogmatism. All right. A little bit of a copy-paste job here to be sure, boilerplate, but I think they actually mixed it up a little bit, reworded things just a little bit, interestingly enough. I know you probably wouldn't notice that, but I did. That said, they didn't really personalize it for you to that end. Oftentimes they don't with the tarot. Sometimes they do, but hey, I think it sounded a little similar, so let's dive in what I have to say. I probably burned it all down, though. All right, here we go. The Hierophant, or the priest, symbolic of faith, human understanding, and esoteric knowledge, which I'd say you must be in possession of if you're more motivated by success over money. All right, that's a little bit of an earthy kind of knowledge a lot of folks don't have. They can't get over that drive for their definition of, or the popular definition of success, all right, which means money oftentimes. What else do we have here? Seeking attention as a star is another thing here. But you don't necessarily do that so much, all right? A little modesty in the bargain. What else do we have? You're also possessing of an unassuming air. And again, there's seeming irony in that. Most stars are seeking that spotlight, all right? But there's favorable traits of self-assuredness. Say you have that going by the breakdown. Absence of doubt, once again. We also have, I would just argue this is a very apt card for you, despite the likes of a priest hardly seeming to line up with the likes of the kind of person outlined in the breakdown. Let's see. Proper interpretation also seems a bit misplaced if there are indiscretions that, worked into the bargain. Play acting, emotional blockages, and being difficult to reach. All of that stuff's kind of considered as much, I would say. But perhaps such qualities, they're more the negatives that are tied in with the moralizing bombast and the dogmatism. Kind of getting after things because you think you can. Who's to say? I don't know. Maybe none of this applies. Maybe some of it does. A little bit of salt to taste. I don't know. But I would say that this card seems to line up very nicely. Sometimes it just kind of seems to serve as an example of what the person should do. All right. Here, I think it almost informed the breakdown in no small part. So, kind of interesting. But that's been your tarot. So now we can just leave it in the book and move on to your health. All right, let's get into your health. Because April 5 people are so conscientious at work, they tend to go overboard when enjoying their free time. Eating and drinking too much, accidents, and misuse of their bodies in general can all be damaging. They should particularly beware of drinking and of taking drugs, particularly drawn to exotic, spicy foods of all types. April 5 people should try and eat foods not only good for their palate, but for their health as well. And because of their unusually strong constitutions and longevity, April 5 people can get away with a lot of reckless behavior, and for a long time. However, they should perhaps apply their sensible work attitude to their diet, their hobbies, and their extracurricular activities. All right. Very personalized health entry today. A little bit of a deviation from typical things they focus on, but I think they hit all the wickets. All right. The typical wickets there. Sometimes recently they've been missing some of them. So let's see how it stands up and what I had to say about it here. You're said to have a tenacity to go overboard some of the time, all right? You also are prone to accidents. Now, that's very common for Mercury folks. Out there taking risks, you're bound to break some bones, all right? So they often suggest you watch it a little bit, all right? Other Aries tend to go hard after work, as it were, and play and exercise too in no small part. Mention of longevity and reckless behavior. That's kind of novel, however, for the Aries period. A lot of them are kind of just focused on that work, focused on that passion, and then everything else kind of falls by the wayside. Not nearly as strong as, say, a Capricorn. Those folks just, they got to tear the walls down a lot of times to have any kind of human interaction with their significant others and the like. That was focused on principally. Here, that doesn't get that much of a mention. So it's curbed a bit, I would say. They said sensible diet for you, no specifics. That's a bit of a deviation. A lot of times they'll tell you exactly what kinds of foods to eat. If Mars is in the bargain, a lot of times you can be fun and fancy free with what you like. They said you like spicy foods and the like, things your palate. They said curb that a little bit from my interpretation. Who's to say that might be Mercury getting in there a little bit, maybe getting a little overzealous, excited. Hey, maybe too excited. Who's to say? What else do we have here, though? Sometimes, or something not just fun, but specific exercise. They didn't really mention that either. A lot of times Mars days, or at least when Mars is in the bargain, they get a lot of strenuous or vigorous exercise recommendations, ostensibly to kind of excise their, what you call god of warlike energy and aggressiveness. Here, didn't really say as much, but you can kind of take an assumption that that's in there too. And if you're Mercury, you got the strong, fast, quick change going, hey, you could probably heighten that as well. But in a lot of cases here in Aries, it's been kind of an anomaly. It's been bucking the tradition and typical assumptions you would make with the planetary influences. So maybe you don't go too hard, too fast. In the few mentions that I've seen where they did mention exercise, it wasn't vigorous, it wasn't strenuous, it was moderate. So flavor to taste, you probably know what's good for yourself. They didn't say you don't. There's a few days where they say those folks don't. So I would say you probably know best in no small part. So what else I have to say here? Probably get plenty. Oh yeah, you probably get plenty of exercise in your active adventuring anyhow. So maybe moderate is just fine. That said, that's been your health. Let's move on to some advice. All right, here we go with some advice. Learn when to give up and to walk away. Quitting is not always such a bad idea. Try being more devoted to your mate, seeing things more often from their point of view. Don't take your good health for granted. Learn to talk about your problems as well as your successes, sharing your joys as well as your sorrows. All right. Pretty interesting advice, I would say. It seemed like most of it applied in no small part. On occasion, sometimes it doesn't. Maybe I mentioned that here. Let's get into it here. I had to write it in a book because I ran out of space in the notepad. So there's a little more blasphemy for you for some folks. All right, they said learn to give up and walk away. All right, quitting is not always a bad idea. I said it's kind of a hard prospect for a lot of folks, I would argue, especially if you have put in so much time. All right, they said you choose a career and you go for it for the long run. So that might be a hard prospect for you to consider. What else we have here? Just that one particular endeavor, like I said. But being ruled by Mercury says you're bound to bounce back if you do have to change. So keep that in mind, all right? Especially with the hard knocks they mentioned. Pretty common theme for the Mercury folks. Lion's share of Mercury is, like I said, drawn to change. I already mentioned that. So it may suit you just fine once you resign yourself to give it a try, if you have to do it. They said try being devout to your mate, see things from their point of view. For those few ostensibly taken up with the affairs there, I'm assuming. I don't know, kind of a tricky prospect. People have their reasons for such things. Not my place to cast judgment, but try out the devotion if that's not something you're keen to, I would say, especially if that's why you got into the relationship in the first place, all right? It's a two-way street, right? If they're devoted to you, you should probably be devoted to them, I would argue. And I would say there's just something otherworldly about having a thick and thin partner, all right? At least in my experience. That's what it was like for me while it lasted before it ended, all right? So don't take your health for granted, they said. Common in this period for Mercury's, as we kind of said. They get in after that adventure and they just kind of cast any kind of caution to the wind. So they said learn to talk. Don't like to be analyzed, but and you play act when you when you do, right? Like as if you do, but that can get in your way, quite honestly. All right, so talk about that kind of stuff. Open up, share, discover more of yourself in the bargain I wrote down here, because you know what, talk therapy works to some extent. You might discover some things. Might open up those relationships even further, right? Discuss the successes, the failures, the doubts, and the confidences. So that's what I'd say about the advice. A lot of assumptions that was leaning in there. Some of that stuff might not even apply to you. Who's to say? But that's what the book had, so that's what I had to work off of. That's been your advice. Let's move on to your meditation. That's right. It's your birthday. You get a meditation, something to reflect upon. All right, here we go. If you have two legs, run. If you have one leg, hop. And if you have no legs, fly! Exclamation point. All right, here one more time. If you have two legs, run. If you have one leg, hop. If you have no legs, fly. All right. I don't quite know what to make of that, but it kind of screams Mercury all over, I would say. That being said, I don't have an interpretation for you, but even if I did, wouldn't give it to you. Your meditation, your birthday, just for you. Wouldn't want to influence it for you. That said, that's been your meditation. Let's move on to your strengths and your weaknesses. All right. See where you got the girth and where you're otherwise a little more atrophied, as if we didn't already pick up on all of that. All right. Maybe we didn't. Who's to say? All right. Your strengths, you're consistent, otherwise unchanging. All right. Interesting for Mercury again. Hardworking, we knew that. And successful. All right, we picked up on that too. But your weaknesses, what could those be? Let's find out here. It says you're repetitive. Interesting. I don't know that I picked up on that one so much. Overindulgent, maybe a little bit, depending upon what was applied there. And it says emotionally blocked. Interesting. I don't know that I picked up on that one so much. Maybe so. They talked about talking about things. A lot of times I like to say our strengths are going to help us overcome our weaknesses. But I also like to argue sometimes our weaknesses can be strengths in and of themselves. So not to cast them out altogether. We'll see if I can make a quick case for myself here. How would you get over your weaknesses with your strengths? You're consistent and hardworking. Hey, you're going to keep applying yourself if it's in your desire to improve upon your weaknesses. Just with those two. And if you're consistent, hey, you're going to make sure that you keep doing it. All right. Another weakness pops up. Boom. Let's knock it down. It says you're successful. Hey, you're going to see it through. You're going to get it done. All right. That bodes well, I would say. Weaknesses, it says you're repetitive. Some people might get a little bit sick of the same old, I would say. I know I did with the birthdays for a little while. I needed to take a break. All right. So how is that a strength? That's right. How do we get in that? Let's see. Overindulgent, repetitive, emotionally blocked. A lot of times like to make the case that maybe we want to get some people off the scent, if you like, or maybe we want to sabotage something. Hey, lean in on the things you're strong with insofar as your weaknesses, the things that are going to get people off the case. Maybe you want someone out of your life. Hey, double down on being overindulgent and emotionally blocked. I know maybe that's a little bit of the play acting there, so you'll be successful in that respect. But I don't know. That seems like a little bit of a cop out. Overindulgent. Hey, sometimes we gotta get into things to make sure that it gets done. A little bit too much, and I think they said that can often be the case in the book. And if they didn't, it's certainly the case with Aries. All right. Get a little overindulgent in the work. Emotionally blocked. Hey, sometimes if things are a little bit too painful, that might be a strength to help you get through that kind of thing. I would say take that in small doses because it's going to get bottled up and eventually it's going to hurt you even more, who's to say. But maybe you need it in a moment of weakness or you need to be able to compartmentalize that in order to move on, do something more important. I would say that's a strength in that case. But again, make sure you address it later, I would say. So maybe not the strongest case for my little argument there, my examination, but that's what it is. Hey, maybe we can help you think outside the box a little bit. But I often like to say, don't get rid of your weaknesses altogether because they're part of what makes you who you are, all right? Maybe just improve upon them enough, all right? That said, that's been your strengths and your weaknesses. Let's move on to those born on this day. That's right. Let's see who shares your company. I like to do this one because, hey, we get to see who shares your company. A lot of times I meet folks out in the world and they don't necessarily have a purpose in life. They're just kind of going through the motions and not enjoying themselves. So I think this is the perfect opportunity to see what other people did, what got them in the book, and maybe think about, hey, that's something I could do. Or hey, even if that's not something you want to do, they got success out of it. And you know what? Maybe that's going to start getting you thinking about putting into work to figure that out for yourself. But if you've already done that, you're chasing your passion, you're completely fulfilled in life, well, hey, then the hat I'm not wearing is off to you. Hopefully you just get some entertainment out of hearing who shares your birthday. So let's dive into it here. Born on this day, we start off with Booker T. Washington, an African-American education leader and founder of the Tuskegee Institute, also a writer of Up from Slavery. We also have Thomas Hobbes, the British political philosopher responsible for a work by the name of Leviathan. We also have Joseph Lister, a British 19th, 20th century physician and introduced antisepsis. We also have Betty Davis, a film actress, Spencer Tracy, film actor, Gregory Peck, the film actor, Herbert von Karajan, a German conductor of the Berlin Philharmonic. We also have Colin Powell, the U.S. Army general and the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff at one point in time. Judith Resnick, U.S. astronaut, it says, killed in the Challenger accident, apparently, that tragic thing. We also have Melvin Douglas, film actor, Robert Bloch, B-L-O-C-H, I think I'm saying that right, Bloch, horror writer of Psycho. We also have Algernon Swinburne, or Swinburne perhaps, I don't want to get that wrong, pro-Raphaelite poet, Jean-Henri Fragonard, I suppose, French Ricardo painter, not great with the French names, my apologies. Marilyn Ferguson, social advocate, publisher, editor, and writer of The Aquarian Conspiracy. We also have Roger Corman, a film producer and a director as well, and responsible for the work Bloody Mama. Haven't heard of that one. Michael Moriarty, a film actor. Stanley Turrentine, jazz tenor saxophonist. Lester James Peries, P-E-R-I-E-S, Peries, perhaps, a Sri Lankan film director responsible for Changes in the Village. And we also have Nguyen Van Theo, a South Vietnamese general and president. And we have Andy MacPhail, baseball general manager, and led the Minnesota to 2 World Series wins. And I also put in here, this is one I added, Nancy Holt, an earthwork artist, responsible for sun tunnels and Dark Star Park, both of which I visited and highly recommend if you're ever in Arlington, Washington, or up in the high desert of Utah there. The most alone I've ever felt in this life was spending the night out at sun tunnels of the Utah desert there. So very interesting. I had to dig in deep with the self-awareness there. come to terms with some fears. I don't know, it's just like you're out on the moon out there. So Nancy Holt, check her out. Very interesting work. That said, that essentially rounds out your birthday reading, all right? Except to say your season is spring, your sign is Aries once again, of the Aries II period specifically, and your quality and elements is Cardinal Fire. All right, and this has been April 5th, the Day of Consequence, from The Secret Language of Birthdays by Gary Goldschneider and Joost Elfers. I have an affiliate link for this book down in the description, right above a personal message I put together for the birthday boys and girls there, if you want to check that out. But this thing makes an excellent coffee table book, or something to pull out in the midst of a party if you want to get the party started or the ice broken, all right? Let the book do the lion's share of the lifting and entertain, all right? That said, that's been the book. Not altogether all too important here, not when it's somebody's birthday. So once again, if it was your birthday, April 5ers, I just want to say happy birthday, all right? And for everybody else, I want to thank you for your time. Hope you enjoyed yourselves, and we see you for your birthday. All right, take care of yourselves. Happy birthday. What was the other thing? Hey, you know what? Keep having fun, all right? But be careful, all right? Don't break those bones, all right? Keep that modesty up. I love people who are earnest, modest, humble, if you like. Even though they're a star, you're going to find that success, all right? And don't be afraid to change, as they said in the book, all right? Even though you were Mercury. That said, take care of yourselves. And once again, you heard it here. Happy birthday. All right.